Good evening, Fernwood. It's your TV pal Neil, and it's time for some more late night variety madness with another episode of Fernwood Tonight. If you're just seeing my face for the first time, hey, it's time for us to react to a show together. We're going to watch it, then we're going to talk about it because we like talking, and if it sounds like it's your bag, then please stick around. If you're one of those folks who maybe wants to help support the channel, then please check out my Patreon and get your support in there, because that's how you get early access to the episodes and all of the things that are coming later when this channel makes its inevitable change. Everyone, today we're going to watch episode 28 from August 10th, 1977. Yesterday felt like a tall tale, so let's take a look back and read this fable. Even though Barth Gimbel's whiplash issues have been resolved, we have the bad news that the Golf Classic is being cancelled, but luckily Barth is planning to host the Garth Gimbel Memorial Tennis Classic instead. We welcome back William W.D. Bud Price, who's there to talk about something very important, but that is derailed when some letters from the viewers at home ask about the device on his chin. Of course, Bud then explains that it is chinodonty, which he's had to explain every time he's been on the show, and that leads to a long tale about how it came to be, including how Bud met a man named Cletus Emmett Wheelwell. Then we welcome on guest Philip Maltby of Phil's Fashion Funwear, who is there to refute the claims made earlier weeks ago by Dr. Van Moot, who claimed that leisure suits cause cancer. Phil stopped somewhere short of claiming that leisure suits cure cancer. And with that, we say goodnight, and Bud gets to take a nap. Everyone, it's the middle of the week. I have no idea what to expect today, so let's get to it.
Tonight from Fernwood Tonight, 30 minutes of very remarkable entertainment coming to you almost live with your host for tonight, Mr. Barth Gimbel. Tonight, Barth's guest will be Colonel Morris Chandler, who wants to bring our boys home from Vietnam, then send them back again, then have them leave New Jersey altogether. Ms. Meg Endicott, who will show you how to behave for the next 10 years. And Happy Kine and the Mirth Makers. And me, I'm Jerry Hubbard. And now here's your host and mine, Mr. Barth Gimbel.
Oh, boy.
Hi, I was playing along like I kind of lost in it. Hi, it's Jerry Hubbard, our announcer.
Yes, I think they know. I'm the man that introduces this man here, and I wanted to jump in early because I understand you have some out-of-sight
Well, it's pretty
slides.
exciting. I just want to talk to people for a second here. You know, a lot of people have been saying to me, Barth, we love you. We love the show. We love the idea of you doing the show. We particularly love the way you're handling yourself on the show, and I think most of them are really being completely honest when they're saying that. Although there's always that small percentage that just wants something from you. Anyway, a couple of folks have asked me, what about guests, Barth? Are you ever going to have any big stars on the show? Well, I think you know the answer as well as I do. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I would be ashamed to come out here and lend my name and physical appearance to a show that didn't present the major talents in the entertainment industry today, and I don't shame very easily. As a lot of you probably know, I used to do a show down in Miami, and of course, everyone who means anything in this business passes through Miami at one time or another, and I had the good sense to meet all of them.
Oh, boy.
It certainly pays off later. Well, I got the chance to renew a lot of those friendships a couple of months ago when I jetted out to the West Coast for a visit. So let me give you an idea of what's in store in the future for Fernwood Tonight by sharing some. I'm going to share some of those stellar moments, I think you'd have to say, because of all the stars out there. Stellar moments from my stay in Hollywood. We'll be doing this with the help of some slides, if that's all right. Can I have the first slide, please? Okay, the day started early at O.J. Simpson's house. There we are. Where the Juice himself was kind enough to lend me a car from his personal fleet so that my tour wouldn't be limited to just the bus lines. I could go anywhere I wanted.
Is that you in the doorway there?
That was me in the doorway. I don't know if we can get that slide back.
You fit right into the Hollywood picture there.
Well, I guess so. Thank you so much, Jerry. Gee, what a wit. Then it was off to lunch at Xavier Cugat's house. Coogie, there we have it right there. I didn't even need to ring the bell. Coogie is one of the sweetest people that the good Lord ever put into show business. He has a remarkable collection of those historical cigars, you know. If you go to as many parties as I do, Jack Nicholson is the kind of host you really dream about. I was on my way out to the pool at this party. Oh, have a shot of that, I think. There we are. When Jack took this, Jack was inside freshening up my wild turkey. He knows how I like that. And we may do a whole half hour with Jack.
Listening to you, it seems to me your thoughts are kind of winging their way westward. Any chance of you leaving the show, going out to Hollywood, huh?
No, but there were wonderful
future?
moments, you know.
Yeah,
sometimes you sit around over a couple of drinks. In fact, we got around just about every night, I guess, right? Around sunrise, we'd always go over to Dino's, Dean Martin's place.
Dean Martin.
Beautiful home. We have that slide? Okay, we'd always make it. We'd always go over there for a nightcap, a little sparkling wine, a little sparkling conversation, if you will. And, you know, a lot of people joke about Dino's drinking, but when he is on the show, remind him to tell us about that story about when he did a movie with Jerry Lewis, totally cold sober. It's really funny. Oh, is he happy killer, will you? Thank you. As you can imagine, it's always fun to get swept up into the Hollywood of yesteryear, and actually the Hollywood of this year, which would not be yester anything.
So you're not going to be leaving the show, heading out to the Tinsel City, are you?
No, Jerry, this is home.
We can keep our fingers crossed anyway.
I guess so. Jerry, this is home. I think once a few of my buddies from Tinseltown wing their way out here and get a lungful of this beautiful, fresh, clean Fernwood air, we might see the beginnings of a whole new show business capital right here on M Street. There's always that possibility.
Are you an autograph collector? You're probably not. I was in Hollywood.
More autograph giver, really.
Yes. Well, I don't have, I'm not troubled by that. I travel incognito, if you will, or without appearance. When I was out in the West Coast a couple of years ago, I don't collect autographs. I feel embarrassed to ask people. But there was one fellow that interested me. He's been collecting autographs since he was about 8 years old.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Close to 250,000 autographs. And he won't stop. He'll get their autograph anywhere, in restaurants. He's gone into people's own private home and gotten them. And he was written up in, I think, People magazine.
Sure.
I think he was on the Johnny Carson show and everything, yes. And I met him and I said, would you sign? I had a program. I was at the theater myself. I said, would you sign my program here? Because I thought having his autograph would be something. But he refused to sign, unfortunately. He was, it was an intermission of a show, and he kind of resented the fact that I was bothering him. And, but it would have been a nice thing to have.
Anyway, big stars coming up.
Here tonight?
Absolutely, Jerry. Some really big stars. It's going to be fun. So, you know how they are about their makeup. They want to spend a few more minutes and make sure the eyebrows are on the right side of the head, that kind of thing. So we're going to break away for just a second or two. A very important word, probably about spray starch or dog food. Okay, we'll be right back.
Dean Martin?
No.
Sinatra?
No.
Frank Sinatra Jr.?
No.
Ray Sinatra?
No.
Jerry Lemmon?
Bill Sinatra?
Ed Burns?
Okay, thank you, Hap. You know, there have always been books on manners and etiquette from people such as Emily Post, Amy Vanderbilt. But many of those rules are, I guess you'd have to say, obsolete now with the new lifestyles of the 70s. Who's going to write the etiquette guidelines for the future? Who knows? Not Emily Post and not Amy Vanderbilt because, well, they're dead. My next guest may be the answer. She is the author of Etiquette Guidelines for the Future. She's not dead, so she's here tonight. Please welcome Ms. Meg Endicott. Is that polite to shake your hand? I don't know. All right.
Hello.
I didn't know. You shake hands, you don't know what you're doing. Was I correct in introducing you as Ms. Endicott?
Oh, yes, it was. You see, many professional women much prefer the term Ms. as it potentially avoids the embarrassing potential error of revealing their marital status.
I see.
May I ask you, are you married, Miss Endicott?
I'm divorced.
I'm sorry, really, that's terrible. It must be so embarrassing to have to admit something like that on television. I'm humiliated. And what makes matters worse, there's probably always some dolt who's asking you, are you married? And you have to say that. I just feel like a fool, really.
Jerry.
Oh, and people probably make such a fuss over it, you could probably kill them.
Jerry. divorce is a very private thing.
Oh, I know.
Between a person
humiliated.
and their ex and maybe their counselor. And just because the TV cameras are here don't mean that you should come out and, some things are your own.
You're right.
Okay? There's a problem. Is it his idea or yours? You want it a little too often, did you? Well, divorce is a subject, though, that needs to be considered in modern etiquette books. How does your book deal with it? I see it has a chapter here.
Yes, well, of course, whether we like it or not, divorce is a rather big part of marriage. In fact, lots of people are throwing large parties in order to celebrate the big day.
Is that right?
Of course, in my book, I have a rather wonderful chapter on divorce parties. For example, what to wear, where the children should sit, how to introduce your date, and who pays for the liquor.
Oh, that's important. More important. It's handy. What about correct etiquette for, let's say, your more unusual marriages? We have all sorts today.
Yes, we do. And, of course, this is readily carried in the book. I have an entire chapter on, for example, what the pregnant bride should wear at her wedding. For instance, you might ask, what should the pregnant bride wear?
Something big, I'll bet.
What does the pregnant bride wear?
Well, if her parents have a sense of humor, she can wear white. Otherwise, she can wear something more casual and understated that simply says, hey, you can stare at me if you like, but at least I know who did it.
And with any kind of luck, he'll be there. What about, how about second marriage or something like that?
Yes, well, of course, I feel that it's terribly important in that second marriage ceremony to avoid any possible replica of the first. You see, this could bring on all sorts of nasty comparisons to the first. For example, at my first wedding, the cake was bigger. Or at my first wedding, my husband invited 200 guests. I guess that means he had more friends. And, of course, this could lead to a nasty comparison on the honeymoon night and get you off on the wrong foot.
Or not get you off at all. I mean, to say you might start arguing right from the start and finally forget the whole thing, huh?
Isn't that the truth? Now, may I point out that second marriage receptions offer you a marvelous opportunity to really have some fun and have a costume or theme party.
Oh, that's nice.
For example, if it was a Mormon ceremony, the bride and groom could take their vows dressed as Donnie and Marie. And the rest of the bridal party could perhaps be on ice skates.
Oh, that's nice.
And as the minister, you could have Paul Lynde.
Wonderful.
Take this woman to be your second wife. Oh, come on, be a sport.
Very good.
You see him on Hollywood Squares, he's great.
That's great. Oh, boy.
Say, why don't we switch from the etiquette and interpersonal relationships to another subject?
How about some of all the major dating problems now that single people are facing? They have these crazy bars and date bars and all
Don't
that.
they indeed? No, I feel in these situations, my best comparison is this. We all think it's the real height of ignorance and thoughtlessness to walk into someone's home when you've got a bad cold and spread your nasty germs all over their furniture and upholstery.
True.
Well, similarly, I believe that it's the height of inconsiderateness to walk into someone's home when you're planning to take them out on a very big date when you know you have VD.
I think a lot of our people here agree with you. And I think the fact that they're here tonight shows that they're clean, or they wouldn't be down here tonight. That's good. We read in the papers every day that the social diseases, you brought it up, and I think we can say it, it's not a brand name, are really reaching epidemic proportions. And the medical people say it's very important to let your partner know immediately. You see that? Even nice people get BD, and this is so true. So you let them know immediately so they can get treatment.
Well, this is, of course, the preferable way to relate your feelings on the subject, confront them personally.
Sure.
But, of course, so many of your people are very shy about these sorts of things. And so for them, we have on the market, in fact, you can buy these in any drugstore, informal notes that perhaps can relate your feelings without actually confronting someone. This is a rather nice one. It says, Mr. Smith regrets to announce that he has given you a mild case of gonorrhea.
I don't know if we can say that. I think that is a brand name.
Yeah, they're probably packaging everything today.
I rather like this. It's not necessarily on the market, but I loved the whole weekend when we were so close. Unfortunately, I think I gave you a dose. I guess it's just my personal favorite. I don't know why.
Sort of another way of saying I loved you, or I loved you. Are these announcements appropriate, really, for everyone? I mean, what do you do? I mean, if someone gave you BD, really?
If someone gave me personally...
Yeah, what would you do?
Well, personally, I think I'd sue their ass off. But, of course, it's all in the book.
It is all in the book right here. Well, listen, I want to... I want to thank you very much, Ms. Endicott, and this is Mer Hubbard and Mer Gimbel. Thank you for your very informative visit.
That Ms. does mean miss for all you single guys out there who might be interested.
Oh.
We'll be right back after these important words. Don't go away. Don't go away. About Vietnam veterans who are having trouble returning to the mainstream of civilized life in America. I think we've all read that. After years of fighting in the jungle, it must be difficult. My next guest is with the Defense Department, and they've got a new program to help those troubled guys out. Will you please welcome Colonel Morris Chandler. Welcome to the show, Colonel Chandler.
Thank you. Just call me Mo.
Okay, Mo. What's the problem here?
Well, undoubtedly, what is his name again?
Barth.
Barth. You've probably read certain incidents of Vietnam veterans going berserk, taking a machine gun and kidnapping some people and shooting up a town, things of that nature.
Sure.
Well, these unfortunate psychotic episodes are the result of what the Armed Forces psychologists call the foxhole syndrome.
Oh, boy.
It's the result of too sudden a withdrawal from the war.
Well, that's a problem. Hey, it's a real problem. What I think everybody wants to know about is what can be done about that?
Well, we've set up what we call the War Deprogramming Center. Mm-hmm. Now, if you recall, at the end of the Vietnam War, things got a little sticky there at the end. I was fortunate myself. I was able to catch an early flight and withdraw quietly. Some of the fellas, though, if you recall, pictures of hanging on helicopters.
Right.
And, it was pretty hairy for some of them. So we've set up this, it's like a controlled wartime environment. We set them back in that environment and slowly wean them back into civil society. It is really something that's absolutely necessary. In fact, the Defense Department has constructed this facility, elaborate facility, just outside Bayonne, New Jersey.
I'll be darned. That's fabulous. Now,
I'll be out there from Bayonne, New Jersey. Bayonne, New Jersey? Cincinnati?
Jerry.
People like to applaud for their hometown.
I'm sure they do, Jerry. Oh, gee, I'm sorry I got my foot all over your uniform. But it's my taxpayers' money, so why can't I just wipe a little if I feel like it? Only teasing. I wonder what these
I do my shoes,
back.
as a matter of fact. Yes.
Absolutely. A
This
little
is from
spit shine on here. I did that for you.
Got that on the football team at Camp Pendleton.
Really? That's fantastic. Did they all get one on the squad, or just...
Oh, yes. Well, just the ones that got beat up a little bit.
You were a captain or colonel?
Colonel, right.
Colonel of the football team. You don't hear that very often.
No.
Tell us exactly, these veterans, how do they spend their time at your center?
Well, at the leisure, we have the usual things, the fire bombings, the forest defoliation things, the hooch burnings, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. It's good for them to have a constructive outlet like that.
Yeah.
Is there actually an enemy? I mean, seriously,
You might be interested. Did I show you a picture of the facility?
Oh, is that what this is? I saw this in here. I did. Oh, for crying out loud. Can you see that? Oh, no, of course not. Are we getting glare? Can we tilt it forward? Which one are we on? We're over here on 3? Okay. Are we picking up on that? Is it glaring? Are we getting glare on that thing? I can tilt it. Are you reading that with the monitors? Fine. I think they got that. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Okay.
I guess it's self-explanatory, really, when you think about it.
This is, by the way, you fellas are free. The Defense Department will give you a free tour of this anytime you're in Bayonne.
Oh, fantastic.
This is an exact replica of a Vietnamese village with the surrounding jungle. We have some swamps and marshes. We threw in a few live snakes and leeches just to make it authentic. You'll notice there's some foxhole trenches here with bayonets sticking out of them. Every once in a while we'll throw off a fireball in the middle of the night just to so they'll remember what it was like.
Little grenades, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Now you also have your McDonald's up here. Do you see that? Can we get that? It's your some sort of hardware store. Maybe it's a food chain of some sort. We have the photomat over here.
They send back pictures from home. This entire set, by the way, was constructed by the Wacky World Amusement Park in Bayonne.
I'll be darned. And they certainly have a way with that plaster of Paris and rattan. That's really something. You'd swear you were there. Is there actually a real enemy? I mean, or do our guys actually go around and kill people?
Well, I like to put to rest the
picture.
The picture, certainly. I'd like to put to rest there's some vicious rumors going around that we're using actual live Vietnamese refugees there. And I want to put that to rest. The actual thing is that we're using lifelike Viet Cong dummies, and they sort of pop out of the bushes at you, and they really are quite clever. We can shoot them, bayonet them, run them over with a jeep, little devils just keep coming right at you.
That's great.
In all fairness, you call them Vietnamese dummies. I think a lot of them are over here now trying to further their education. Trying to go to high schools and the colleges, so just so to give them equal time.
Terry. Colonel, fine for the jungle, what you've shown us, but what about the Vietnamese town you've set up? Is that working out well?
It's an authentic town. We have water buffalo carts. We have Vietnam bars.
And what's the actual final step here? The final blow that hits the guy so we can honestly say, hey, for crying out loud, I gotta get out of here.
Well, we have one of the female companions tell the soldier she's pregnant. And he beats a very hasty retreat out of there. He's glad to get out.
And you don't charge anything to these people? It's free of charge to our...
Absolutely. Our servicemen are taken care of, with the exception of the female companions.
And you don't even charge for the room?
Oh, of course.
That's wonderful. Well, it certainly is good news, and except for the girl, of course.
I find some of the civilians from some of those little towns around New Jersey volunteering, trying to get into your camp there.
Absolutely. We've received support from all over the country. The Hollywood community especially has been very supportive. There's talk that a USO tour is coming in. There's talk that Bob Hope is bringing in Lola Falana for a tour. Of course, the fellas don't want him, but well, that's what war is all about.
Is Martha Ray dead?
No, not that I know.
I was kind of curious about that. I know she did a lot of USO tours. And
I remember Martha.
George Jessel, of course, would probably want to play there. The Osmonds, who knows? It could be anyone there.
Who knows? They've been very supportive all the way through.
That's right. I think what this proves, without any shadow of a doubt, something to the American people, that you so often hear that the Defense Department doesn't have a heart. And I think... don't want to get those dirty. But I think you people are real people, and you really do have a heart, and I just think you're doing wonderful work. And we'll be right back in a few... On time tonight. I'd like to thank all my guests, but we don't have enough time, so I'll thank my guests tomorrow night. But those will be different guests, but it doesn't matter. Okay, good night.
Also appearing on tonight's show were Sean Walsh as Colonel Morris Chandler and Judy Kahn as Ms. Meg Endicott.
Well, that certainly went some places. Speaking of going places, Barth took a trip to Los Angeles, and that actually made me mad homesick. It strangely reminded me of photos from the photo albums that my family had in my youth. Like, just big signs of things in Los Angeles. Which, it's played up like he's taken a trip around the country, but to be honest, their studio was in Hollywood, so they're probably just taking signs of various businesses that were around at the time and playing it up like it is the various celebrities of the day, which I'm pretty amused by. Then we bring on Ms. Meg Endicott, who is there to talk about modern 1970s modern etiquettes. And things were really starting to shift, I think, in the 1960s and 70s. So I'm not sure if everyone understood all of the different changes that were happening around them. I think, to me, I feel like in the 1970s, even just this very simple Ms. thing becomes a bone of contention for some folks, but a way to empower others. In any case, the title Ms. is intended to empower women, to give them freedom from the idea that they need to reveal their marital status. And of course, Jerry and Barth both kind of screw that up by just asking the question. I feel like in some ways, the cultural shift of the Ms., right, that was made very popular with Ms. Magazine, Gloria Steinem's book, is somewhat analogous to the modern day use of pronouns, the way that various folks can use pronouns that were unfamiliar to folks maybe 10 years ago. And, as a person who will allow you to use any respectful pronoun you like, I'm all for that. It doesn't really hurt anyone, and it's mildly confusing for someone who just holds on to old stuff. I feel like that moniker, the Ms., isn't as used as it was in the 70s and 80s. And, I don't even know what labels people are using now. Miss and Mrs. haven't gone away. And Ms. still is present, but it's just not something that I hear young folks talking about. And by young folks, I mean millennials who, they're just slightly younger than me. I can't imagine a Zoomer calling anyone Ms., for instance. The etiquette that Meg talks about gets into STDs, or as they called them in the day, venereal diseases, VDs. This was before the AIDS crisis, so probably the worst thing you could have gotten was herpes, or at least herpes was the big one in the mid-80s before AIDS became a really public news item. So chlamydia, gonorrhea, those were the big diseases that I think got mentioned. I mean, gonorrhea certainly got mentioned here. We hear about the clap. Compared to the diseases that would come later, they're fairly innocuous and all treatable. I'm now on a tangent about STDs, so just let me go here for a second. So there's a little bit of, discomfort around STDs. And in the post-AIDS era, I think it became very important in a trustful relationship to have discussions about your contacts with other people, sexually, your sexual contacts with other people. That seems to be an important conversation to be having even decades after that. So to surprise someone with it, I know that diseases, STDs and VD, as they were called back then, were treated with shame. And now people have lived with herpes for decades and decades and decades. They just treat it. Certainly we don't want to spread the disease if we can help it, but you can have a fairly happy sexual life with a variety of diseases. It's fairly inconvenient to get one. Certainly no one wants to have to handle it, but it's not as dirty as it once was. Then there seems to be some lapse in time there, because there are two guests that I keep spying in the corner of my screen and I don't recognize them, because it's not Meg Endicott. It's some other woman with a different color hair and a different outfit, and I see someone's pant leg. It might be Happy Kine. So it seems to me that they've recorded a few segments in this show that just got cut entirely. But in this case, we bring out Colonel Morris Chandler to tell us about his new plan to reintegrate Vietnam veterans into society. And the way that I picture this place, yes, it's definitely played for comedy to the level of absurdity. It just sounds traumatic to bring people into this place. Not only is it a camp that replicates your experience in Vietnam, it's in New Jersey with a McDonald's and a photomat nearby. Photomats are where you would drive up and get your film developed in the days before everyone's camera was on their phone. Certainly there's no image here that says that this is really how we should treat veterans of recent wars. Mo opens his interview section by suggesting that veterans were sort of shooting up towns and kidnapping people. And I mean, that sounds straight up like PTSD. I don't remember those stories, and the closest I can get with regard to a story of a Vietnam vet would be the Rambo movies. First Blood, for instance, that's the best of them to me. But honestly, it just seems like some kind of torture to me to bring a vet into this very traumatic space and setting off firebombs and putting up dummies that jump out at you. That certainly doesn't seem like a way of helping someone get back to normal daily life. I know, it's played for comedy. I just have to forgive it. It's certainly intended to be just stupid. So we'll just have to forgive it. Anyway, I have no idea who those guests were. Barth was wearing the same outfit as far as I can tell. I'm just going to have to be confused and not know who they were. So that, everyone, is our Wednesday episode. So let us go back to the topic of the week. We've been unpacking the relationship in the show Mary Hartman between Mary Hartman and Tom Hartman. Today's response is another from Victor Credenza. Lifelong disappointment that he never fulfilled what he could have been. Through the entire series, he wears that baseball cap and that Letterman jacket. He's been out of high school for at least 15 years, and he's a grown man. He's hanging on to his high school years. Even in the beginning, he went to the high school coach for advice like he was still on the team. Mary I see as a woman in that time who was caught between growing up being taught that to be like a woman she has to be like June Cleaver, or she chose Donna Reed, a television 1950s perfect housewife. But then along comes women's liberation and so many other modern things like homosexuality, infidelity, erectile dysfunction, indecent exposure, social diseases. Need I go on? Things that wouldn't be on the Donna Reed show. How can Mary possibly cope? And that's right. That's what we talked about yesterday with Tom. Tom went to Coach Fetters for advice, and Coach Fetters had no idea how to talk with sex. Coach Fetters is the one father figure that Tom has in the show. And that man is a man who demonizes sexuality. Mary, on the other hand, she is trying to be perfect and failing because you can't be perfect. So much of Mary's issues in the first chunk of the show have to do with this sexual relationship between her and Tom. Tom is dealing with his self-loathing, and where that becomes apparent is in his inability to have sex with Mary early on in the series. It's never quite named exactly why Tom doesn't give Mary the affection that she needs. She craves it. She wants it so much. It appears that it is some kind of erectile dysfunction. Again, never named. And at that point, they would have called it impotency. That's the word that was used at the time, but that's not ever verbally named. It seems like Tom has a lot of pressure on him, though. That, combined with his self-loathing, is certainly turning off his interest in Mary. Which is not to say that he doesn't love Mary. Mary loves Tom, Tom loves Mary, but they're both really messed up individuals. But so much of the early series with Mary is her trying to solve this issue of not being sexually satisfied. And that brings me to a show that I watched recently. It's on Netflix. It's called The Principles of Pleasure. I'm still actually watching it because I'm savoring it over time, but it is a show that explores, for entertainment purposes, it explores women's sexual pleasure. And this is a topic that would have been right up Mary's alley. She really wanted to understand. That was her main want for that first chunk of season 1. She really just wanted her sex life with Tom to be better. And she couldn't understand it, and she was going unguided to get information. Resources at the time were pretty dim, and it makes me curious. I know that folks are of various opinions about whether Mary Hartman should be remade, and there hasn't been news since July of 2021, so who knows if it's actually going forward. But I actually feel like a remake would be really ripe, considering how much information we are bombarded with at all times. It makes sense. And now, for instance, sex education is a lot more public and encouraged. I wonder how that would play on a mind that was as broken as Mary's is in the 1970s. I wonder how she would function if she were here today. So everyone, that's my response to the topic of the week. This is our Wednesday episode. Thank you so much for watching with me. Thank you so much for leaving your thoughts, feelings, and impressions in the comments. Thank you for being you. And Ariel, thank you for supporting the Patreon. We will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.